For the past year and a half, this camera setup right here, this is the Panasonic S5IIX with the 24-105 f4 zoom lens. And I don't always use the XLR module one, but this is XLR. And then this tilt to half cage. This has been my documentary setup for about a year now. So I've shot one feature doc and then two short docs on this with this exact setup right here. And the way I shoot is a mix of sit-down interviews, fly on the wall, a lot of B-roll. I don't do cinema-style documentaries. Mine are more run and gun and solo shooting. I don't usually have a big crew. I do have multicam when I'm doing sit-down interviews. So I also have an S5 II and a GH6 and GH7 that I use when I'm doing multiple cameras, interviews, or like an event that's happening. But for the most part, my run and gun setup has been what you're looking at right now. This has worked out very well for me to the point where I think I can upgrade now. And I'm just because this is such a popular camera system, I was very curious that once I get it and test it out, if it's worth going to the Sony FX3 system. So this one, here's an equivalent setup to what I got here with my Panasonic. So this is a Sony FX3. I have a cage, a small rig cage. This is the 24-105 f4, the G Master lens, and then I have attached up here the XLR handle that comes with the FX3, and then I have this small rig top handle accessory that goes on it. And you can see here that they're quite similar sizes, but what you can't tell from the video, or if you've owned this yourself, maybe you probably know this, but the FX3 is pretty lightweight. It's gotten heavier with the cage and then the top handle on this other stuff, but it's a fairly lightweight camera system. And this Panasonic is heavy. It's a lot heavier. Even with this has a top handle and all this XLR accessories, even with this top handle and the small rig cage, this still feels clunkier and a little heavier than the Sony FX3 here. What I'm liking so far with the FX3 is just how it's designed specifically for video and cinema. And even though the S5IIX has probably some of the most advanced features in a Panasonic mirrorless camera, it still is not an official cinema camera. And the XLR module is built into the top handle, and it makes it way more convenient to hold and operate. Whereas if you wanted XLR in this Panasonic, you're stuck with this, and there's no way to relocate this. So if you want to have a top handle similar to the FX3, you have to have a bigger rig. The few things that I, right now anyways, think that the Panasonic S5IIX has over the FX3 and other Sony cameras is that the Panasonic here has better image stabilization, in-body image stabilization than the FX3. And because I do a lot of handheld, that has become pretty important to me. I also have the GH7, the Micro Four Thirds, which is a different lens mount, different system, but that is like almost having a gimbal. So I'm able to walk handheld at longer telephoto zoom lengths and still not have any jitters. And I've developed handheld techniques where when I have this system, especially with this combination of an image stabilized lens, I can be really steady, amazing footage handheld. And since that is what I do most often, this was really big. This is really big for me. Really big feature. The other feature I've noticed that this Panasonic has that the Sony and I don't think any of the Sonys have is that the Panasonic can do open gate video. So this one, I think it's close to a 6K open gate, and it's at 420, but it's 10-bit. And when I want to do that stylistically, it's very cool to have. You could crop the sides of the DCI or the 4K 16:9. You could just crop the sides to emulate an open gate or a 4:3 or whatever that square aspect ratio, but the Panasonic here gives you true open gate, and I really like that look, just from a stylistic standpoint. I don't always shoot open gate, but I like that style, and this is really the only camera that I believe can do open gate in this kind of a form factor. I know Blackmagic can do open gate, but I don't think Canon can do open gate. Sony can't do open gate. So this Panasonic open gate with the combination of in-body image stabilization is fantastic. And finally, if you're shooting anamorphic, because this is open gate, it has anamorphic modes that is better suited for anamorphic than the Sony FX3. The Sony, you really have to get specialized lenses, and then you got to do some cropping on the sides in order to get certain aspect ratios, anamorphic aspect ratios. Primarily like a 239:1. One combination that's really interesting to me is to shoot open gate, but then use a 1.33 times anamorphic lens. And that's going to get you more of a 16:9. So you have a 16:9, not extremely wide, but you have the anamorphic qualities. So it gives you interesting looks. So creatively, as a creative tool, if you like to have different types of images, the Panasonic here gives you those options, and creatively, it's an interesting tool to have. For also a cheaper budget, like the budget level of the lenses and the body and the accessories for Panasonic is generally cheaper than Canon and Sony. But when it comes to other factors of just being really reliable, if you work with other camera operators, they typically shoot more Sony than they do Panasonic. So if you need multicam and you need other operators, it's easier to find people that have Sony. Sony, there's way more accessories and third party that are cheaper. So I've been seeing more Sony options, and it's just overall more value to sticking with Sony than Panasonic. So now I'm in the middle right now. I'm doing still some productions with the Panasonic, but I'm slowly shifting to Sony. Sony's offering just way too much value and options for filmmakers and photographers that I think I just have to go with Sony now. I'm one of those guys that, just one of those people that have been doing that, making the switch.